Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's October 29th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and it was an FOMC day, so kind of a wild, crazy day. This looks like some topping action here, right at the upper band. We're still not to the upper side of the trend channel line, but we may not can make it up there because the market is so overbought. We corrected a little of that today. Still made another all-time new high, but we did make a lower low today, and we closed lower. So, but this is a very neutral bar, and it did close back inside this trend line, so we could continue up tomorrow. We'll just have to see. Usually prices will pull back and test this midline before they go higher. So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't trend lower and then turn back up. But we're still inside this trend line, so we could continue higher. It's hard to call this one. So we'll have to see what tomorrow brings. Just know that the market's very overbought, and that's a concern right now. So the Feds did cut the rate another quarter point today. So that should be fairly bullish for the market. And so we may see this thing continue higher for now to this upper trend line. So we'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. But anyway, yeah, we got lower rates. Rates were lowered again, so that's probably hopefully a good thing for the economy. Um, we'll see what happens. It's usually good. It's usually good for the market. I believe that quarter rate's already probably worked into the prices here, though. So that doesn't necessarily mean that change is going to take us higher because I do believe that was already baked in. People had already expecting that quarter point, and that's what this last rally's been all about, most likely. So anyway, we'll see what tomorrow brings, but let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and take a look at it and go through the trades, and we'll go from there. Okay, here's our 2000 tick chart, and you can see we started out in this range. You need to be flat by noon, and really I would say you want to wait 15 minutes on this FOMC. So about 1:15, you could probably start trading again. We didn't really get any opportunity till really almost 2 o'clock because the bottom just fell out of this thing and there weren't many setups down through here, um, unfortunately. So, but let's zoom in here and we'll go through what the trades. There were plenty of trades prior to noon, and there's quite a. I mean, I wouldn't say quite a few, but there's a few after late this afternoon going into the 2:30 hour. So, 7 o'clock came. Where was 7 o'clock? It was right in here, one of these bars. I think it was this next bar here. So it was really, we were already headed down here during 7 o'clock. And we did get a lower high here, but I don't know if you want to trade that one or not. It's a possibility. Depends on how much room you got to the. Now, there's just enough room there. So maybe you take that one. I'd be willing to give it a green. I'd like to see the lower high a little higher up than that with more room back to the EMA. And you can see quickly we got to close outside the new low and a second entry long. I'd prefer going long there versus short. Um, and then we come back and get a triple test here. We did make a slightly lower low there, so I did mark that one green. Better off to wait on a higher low, and we don't get one. We just kind of chop around here. I didn't mark this one either, but really you could have taken this trade. It's a triple test. It is a failed breakout of this congestion here. It's a good signal bar. The problem is there's not a lot of room back to that EMA, but we are playing the range, and a lot of times you can't worry too much about the EMA. But we've been in an uptrend here, so I wasn't crazy about that. I meant to mark that green, but I'll still give it a green. There is a lower high here too. Um, and we got a little more room back to the EMA, but you see we still don't have enough room there. And when we didn't get back on this one, I mean, you could argue again for that to be green, but I didn't like them in real time. And you could see we still did go much higher. And I would have rather gone long here, but there's not room to scalp out. And it doesn't matter. It ends up taking off. And you get this failed breakout. And you basically get a double top, so you can treat that like a lower high. I like going short there. If you caught this one trade, that's probably all you need today. And you can be done. You don't have to worry about fighting this news and being trading after that, or the craziness that you're probably going to encounter. So that was the trade to catch that failed breakout. And I talk about this all the time, how these failed breakouts usually are important highs or lows. Well, that's the high of the day. So is that an important high? Of course so. And if you catch that, I mean, you probably wouldn't want to ride all this out, but you could have got a nice move down on that. Here you had a triple test with a nice signal bar. It's questionable. It's not a perfect signal bar. So I marked it green, but it's there. And if you didn't enter there, don't enter on this one because it makes another high. It makes a higher low, higher high, and then you get an engulfing bar. So just sit tight and see what happens. And next thing you know, this thing's rocketing down again. And I mark this as a possibility, just because you're so far away from the EMA. You don't. You could treat this like a failed break lower from up here. So it's still, even though you got a new line, basically what I think happened was we just expanded the range. And you can see we had another support line across there. But at that point, that was a failed break lower below that triple test there. So you could treat that like a failed breakout, and you got a long way back to the EMA. So maybe you take that again. You're always better off to wait on the higher low, and that doesn't come till here. And that just happens to be where the measured move would have been on this other range, and that's why you got another line across there. I like going long there. And then we try to go lower a couple more times. Um, but notice you're working back down here. First entry, and then you get a second entry. But you can't go long on that inside bar. But then you get a higher low here and a nice signal bar. I like going long on that one. And again, you get two legs up and a second entry short up here. Normally I'd tell you probably want to wait on a lower high, but we got a clear close outside and a new high, and it's like we just pushed through this midline, so it's probably going to fail and pull back and test it. You're way away from the EMA. This is close to being green because a lot of times you want to wait on that lower high. But with that being a second entry and their clear break and new high and being that far away from the EMA, I think it's worth risking. And you can see it runs down, close outside new low here, but no setup. Runs up. We try to get you basically you get a close outside here, but you don't get a new high. But you actually get two legs down, and that's a second entry long on another break lower. And basically you might have moved this line down by that point. And I think you can argue, even if you didn't move it down, I think you can still argue there's a 1, 2, 3 triple test with a big signal bar, and that is a second entry long. You're not really looking for second entries, but if it turns out to be one in a spot where you get a triple test and some strong support, you probably want to treat it like one. And there is plenty of room back to these highs here. But you can see that's as far as you could go. So that's why you always want to make sure you got room to scalp out, because notice where we went to, the original highs. And we couldn't breach that, and it turns back down. I don't see any reason to go short there, though. You get a little break lower here. No setups down here. You wait for a higher low, but you don't get anything there. And then you got a trend working up, close outside, new high. And it's also, there's a new low there, and it's the first entry, second entry, way away from the EMA. I like that one. We've also really, you got a 1, 2, 3 triple test cost there too. So I like going short there just to try to ride it back to the EMA, and you might catch the high there before you get into this 12 o'clock hour and can't trade anymore. And of course it runs back to the EMA and bounces, makes another lower high, and that takes you into that hour. And like I said, wait till about 115 or things settle down, and I think you needed to probably wait till about 115 here. There was a nice second entry here, but that's still just after 1 o'clock, and I just think it's a little dangerous. And even if you draw your trend channel up there, there's no close outside new high yet. You do get the lower high. I mean, maybe you trade that, but I would wait till 115, and I don't see anything else. Now, there is a triple test here, but it doesn't trigger. And we finally run up here. And again, there's a triple test up here. And I think you do get a close outside and a new high, but it's like think that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth entry or something. I don't know. Maybe you consider it, but I'm not crazy. It turns out to be a great move, but of course you don't know that in advance. It breaks out, continues lower, and notice what happens here. You get a first entry, second entry, right off the key entry point, but we're way away from the EMA and have been away. So, and it looks a little sideways. There is room to scalp out there, so maybe you take that one. You know, that kind of trade scares me because that's about the time you enter, it goes 3 or 4 ticks, and then you get the break, and then the move to the new low off the EMA. So you got to be careful with those. But it's clearly one leg down, and you're very likely to make a new low there. So maybe you take it. And unfortunately, I don't see any other trades here. You get a break outside, several more swings to a low, and then it runs up. Now notice right here, there's a triple test. It's really congested. Um, Still, you might argue for that. There's clearly a triple test there. Runs up, and that's just a first entry. And that's just a first entry going back up as well. You do get a close outside and a new low, and you could argue that's a higher low. So it's another one that maybe you could enter. But notice what happens. You get a new low there, and you try to go short twice more. So there's going to be a failure there. So that looks a little like a reversal. And it's a good signal bar. It's a higher low. We've been making higher lows up through here, except for that one. It does make a slightly lower low, but it's still higher overall. So maybe you go long there too. All three of those are a possibility. They're not perfect setups, but they're a possibility. So just keep them in mind there. Maybe you take them. Didn't mean to hit my mouse there. And then we just start trending up here. I don't see, there's technically a second entry there, but we've already got your close outside. It's real congested and sideways. You're not back to the EMA yet. It's a little dangerous entering there. We do get 2 legs up to a new high, but no setup there. Now there's a lower high here, but you got a lot of support across there. So when it bounces, a break above, that's a second entry long. So I like that one. You get a higher low here, but notice by that time we're kind of stuck at that midline, and it looks really sideways and congested. I'm not crazy about that one. It would have worked, but it doesn't set up very well. And of course, notice you get a close outside the new high here on a second entry short, and it looks like we're in a range. So I like that one just to ride it back to here, and this one ends up going much lower. You get a failed breakout here. Runs back in. We're just chopping along. I don't see any setups up here. Nothing down. Another failed breakout. Now here you do get a higher low back in the range. I like going long there, just playing the support again. And it actually comes back and gives you another test of it and another nice signal bar. So trade it again. And it runs back up, but nothing on the way back down here. And that takes us into 230. So kind of a mixed day here. It really was all sideways, and that's common, waiting on that news to come out, and then finally the news comes out, and you see what you get here. It wasn't really, I just don't think there was any kind of surprises today. I think everybody was expecting that quarter point. I think it was built in already, and so the market didn't really want to go higher on it on that news, so it sold off momentarily, but notice we took it all back before the close and then sold off slightly from there. So just kind of a mixed trading day overall. And you saw it on the daily chart. Let's go back and look at that daily chart one more time. And you can see it here, just a very mixed day. We got, it's a engulfing bar. It's an outside bar. The high is outside this high and the low is outside this low. So that's what you call an engulfing bar. And it closes lower. We traded higher, traded lower, and closed lower. But notice we closed back inside that trend line. So we could turn higher from here tomorrow. You know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we go up to this upper trend channel, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get a break here first and then run to a new high, allowing this channel to play out, and then it turned back down. Seen that happen a lot. The timing on this pullback would be just enough to make it where you could get to this upper trend line and make a new high at the same time. So that's a very strong possibility. So we'll just have to see what tomorrow brings. But it wouldn't surprise me either if we just traded higher because we're still inside that trend line. So I don't know what to expect tomorrow. We will have to wait and see. And we'll go from there. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a good trading day. Always remember on these FOMC days, be flat by noon Central Standard Time. If you're in a different time zone, do the math, figure out what that means for you. If you're Eastern, that means it doesn't come out till 2 o'clock, so you want to be flat by 1 o'clock. Or no, would it be, if I got that backwards? If you're Eastern time, you're an hour ahead of us, so you want to be flat by 11 o'clock a.m. and the news will come out at noon for you. And then if you're on the other side, it's an hour later or whatever, or 2 hours if you're Pacific time. So just do the math. I mean, it's not that hard to do the math based on your time zone, but just understand. I just know it's noon my time, so noon Central time. Be flat because the news comes out at 1, and I've seen times where if you weren't flat an hour before the news and you took a trade at like 12 noon or 12:10, you could get stuck and a bunch of bars just going sideways like this, and you can't get out. And you got to get out before the news, so you're probably going to have to take a loss. It may only be a few ticks, but you don't want to take a chance at that and get stuck in it, and then the news hit, and this happened to you, and you get hammered. Because you could take a big loss, even if you got your stop in the right place, because you might get a bunch of slippage and everything else. So just be flat an hour prior anytime you have a FOMC rate announcement day. Just understand that. The speakers and minutes and all that are not quite as important, but on those days where it's a rate announcement, be flat an hour prior, whatever time it comes out your time. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. We'll wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.